Well, we have my friend Alan Dershowitz with us. He's written a fantastic book, War Against the Jews, How to End Hamas Barbarism. I don't know how Alan does this. I don't even know how you got this to the printing presses so fast, Alan. But it is a very, very crucial book now. We're linking to it on all our social sites. And we're linking to Amazon, War Against the Jews. What is in this book that's different or cutting edge or new that you felt it was absolutely crucial to get it out here and get it out here now?
Because it's not about October 7th. It's about October 6th and October 8th. It's about October 6th, the day before the horrible, horrible massacre of Jews and how Israel allowed it to happen, what happened with security failures and intelligence failures. And then most importantly, it's about October 8th, how liberals and radicals and leftists, before Israel even fired a shot, even sent a single soldier into Gaza, blamed the attack on Israel, said it was a legitimate military attack, defended and justified rapes, how it showed the deep underlying anti-Semitism of the hard left and anti-Americanism and anti-Judeo-Christian values of the hard left. It's enough to stick at anybody. You know, I used to identify with the kind of leftish side of liberalism. I was always more of a libertarian. But boy, I hate the hard left now. I think they are the enemies of America, the enemies of the Jewish people, the enemies of decency. And the book documents it. You know, it gives a brief history of how we got to where we are with Gaza and how Israel has tried to make peace at every point in time, from 1948 to 1967, 1990, 2000, 2001, 2005, 2007, and how the Palestinians don't know how to take yes for an answer, how they've said no. And every time Israel tries to get a ceasefire, like on October 6th, there was a ceasefire. And look what happened as a result of a ceasefire. 1,200 innocent people murdered, raped, beheaded. So the book has a lot of new information. Also, I had dinner with Bibi Netanyahu 8 days before this happened. I had a Friday night Shabbos dinner with him when he was in New York at the General Assembly, a 3-hour dinner. And he was so happy and so content. We had figured out a way of perhaps resolving the dispute over the judicial reform, and I had come up with a proposal that he seemed to have accepted and the left seemed to have accepted. And we were so encouraged and so optimistic. And then on the following Saturday, 8 days later, the world changed. It'll never be the same again.
Alan Dershowitz, I keep hearing that after this is over, the Israelis have to figure out how to negotiate a peace, how to divide up their country. I mean, is this really the time for that?
No, this is the time to win a decisive military victory. This is the time for Churchill. This is the time for Roosevelt. This is the time for total victory, unconditional surrender. You know, the Secretary of Defense of the United States made a terrible mistake the other day. He said, if you're too hard on the people of Gaza, it will drive them into the hands of Hamas. Nonsense. They're already in the hands of Hamas. Mm-hmm. Look what happened when the United States bombed Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Berlin, Dresden. It drove the Germans and the Japanese into the hands of America. They said, we know who the stronger party is now. We know where our bread is buttered. We know who will help rebuild us. And they became America's strongest supporters after total victory. Yes, hundreds of thousands of innocent civilians were killed. That's the nature of war. But you don't give up. You don't. If I'm Israel, I don't risk a single Israeli soldier to save a single Gazan civilian. First of all, 90% of them are not civilians. They work with Hamas. They allow their houses to be used for tunnels. They allow their houses to be used for hiding rockets. I'm not talking about the children, obviously. By the way, they define child as anyone under 19. So, you know, an 18-year-old with an RPG who's about to blow up an Israeli tank, he's a child, and he'll be listed as a child. Or a woman who is a suicide bomber, if she's caught, she'll be listed as a woman. Oh, a woman. Oh, my God. A woman. Israel killed a woman. Israel should kill as many women terrorists as they can.
100%. I mean, you look at every major war. You look at World War II. You look at our Civil War. I have to be honest with you. The goal was victory.
Yeah.
I don't remember the media sitting around counting, and certainly don't remember. Here's the other thing that's so damn offensive. There's not another army on the face of the earth that fights wars the way Israel fights wars. They fought wars in the past. They've won the wars. They back off. They want peace with their neighbors, and they're attacked again, and then they're attacked again. And what is this idea that these terrorists want two states? Iran just said they want a caliphate. They don't want two states. Hamas just said, we don't want two states. We want a caliphate. So if they get another state carved out of Israel, I mean, we do need to change our thinking on this, Alan. If we get another state charged out of Israel, that's not going to stop them because the ideology is the same. They're Islamists.
Look, the first job is to win the war, show who's strong, have America support. I'm shocked today that Canada eliminated its support. Canada voted at the UN today.
Really?
For a ceasefire. It's not a ceasefire. It's a surrender. Mm-hmm. When Canada votes for a ceasefire, it's voting for Hamas. It's voting for a Hamas victory. And it's shocking that it would have done that. But the United States hopefully will stand strong. Biden has said some things that I've been very critical of. He talks about how the government of Israel should change governments. Hey, that's not your business, Mr.
Exactly.
President. Israel's a democracy. It's going to decide who should be the next prime minister. It's very likely not going to be Netanyahu because he's going to be held responsible probably for the intelligence failure and the operational failure unless he achieves a major victory here and can redeem himself. But democracies are fickle. Look what happened after the Second World War. Winston Churchill, one of the greatest heroes of the civilized West, wins the Second World War. In the next election, he gets booted out of office.
They throw him out.
An idiot named Anthony Eden. Yeah.
Yeah. No, 100%. But there are forces even now. The New York Times, it's every other day they have some scathing attack on Netanyahu. The media with Israel, the same thing. And I say on this microphone to all of our audience here, look at how this guy's the commander-in-chief. He's trying to win a war here. He's trying to defend his people, the survival of his people. And the Chihuahuas keep nipping him on the heels. Do you see that too?
Well, it's worse.
We're here with Alan Dershowitz, his great new book, War Against the Jews, How to End Hamas Barbarism. Alan Dershowitz, I did take a hard break. You were saying when I interrupted you. Go ahead.
What I was saying is, Bibi can't get it right, according to his left-wing critics. They're criticizing him today because he doesn't give enough humanitarian aid to Gaza. But now they're also criticizing him for having given too much humanitarian aid to Gaza, saying that a lot of that humanitarian aid was used to arm Hamas and help them commit the atrocities of October 7th. Of course, that's right. And, the government of Israel wanted to get food and medicine to the right people, but Hamas has stolen it. And Hamas uses human shields. And every one of the innocent children who has been killed in Gaza is the fault of Hamas. Let me give you an example. Let's assume I rob a bank and police start shooting at me, and I grab you as a hostage, and the police, and I'm shooting and killing people behind you. You're in front of me, and the police try to kill me, and by accident they shoot you. Who's guilty of the murder? Under no system of law is the policeman guilty of murder. Israel is the policeman. I'm guilty of the murder. I'm holding the hostage. That's why Hamas is guilty of the murder. And the one question I would have every American ask is, what would you want your country to do? What would you want America to do if what happened to Israel on October 7th happened to America? We know what the heartland of America would want. We would want the enemy defeated totally, completely, absolute surrender, no questions asked. Do whatever you can to avoid civilian casualties, but don't sacrifice a single American for a civilian of the enemy who's being used as a human shield.
Alan Dershowitz, you're one of the great litigators in this country, have been for decades, but you're also a man of academia, specifically Harvard. I believe you were the first full professor at Harvard when you were in your 20s. You spent almost half a century there. Did you see all this anti-Semitism, and what do you make of this president of Harvard?
Oh, well, she's awful. She is going to single-handedly destroy not only Harvard, but much of American academia. And it's not so much what she said about October 7th, which is awful. She didn't say a thing about it. She wouldn't criticize people, even before Israel sent a single troop into Gaza. It's what she did before that. She was safety, safe spaces. She wanted to make sure that no ideas, no speech should be made at Harvard that would offend any black students, gay students, transgender students, protected minorities under the diversity, equity, and inclusion bureaucracy. And so she discovered the First Amendment only after radical left bigots started to call for the death of Israel. Then she said, oh my God, I can't do anything about that. There's the First Amendment. But when students used a misgendered word or did something that offends a particular black person or gay person, she was the first person to say, fire him. Under her jurisdiction, lectures were canceled because a lecturer said there were really only two sexes and there's not a third sex. She rescinded applications for admission because a 15-year-old in a chat room said something that might be deemed offensive to blacks. And then ultimately Harvard fired its president, Larry Summers, for having raised the question about whether maybe gender has something to do with mathematical and skills in physics, something my wife believes. She's a PhD in neuropsychology. But for saying that, he got fired. But when she's asked the question, what if people want to commit genocide against the Jews? Well, that depends on context. She's a hypocrite. She testified under oath that Harvard has supported free speech during her tenure. When it hasn't, it only supports free speech when free speech is directed against Jews. And that's just bigotry. And Harvard ought to be ashamed of itself, and the Harvard Corporation ought to be ashamed of itself. Penn did the right thing. Harvard did the wrong thing.
Our friend Nathan Lewin wrote a great piece on the First Amendment. He went through the Supreme Court decisions and all, and he said, these presidents of these universities don't even understand the First Amendment or what the court has said about the First Amendment. It's like they didn't even prepare for their testimony. What do you make of that? It was very bizarre.
Well, they lawyered up. They got one law firm, WilmerHale, very left-wing law firm. I know a lot of the people in it. Some of them are quite good. And they horribly prepared them. They prepared them to answer as if they were in a courtroom with a judge instead of in front of. It was the largest viewed congressional hearing in years, and it embarrassed Harvard, it embarrassed Penn, it embarrassed MIT. I wish they had used Nat Lewin. Nat is one of the greatest First Amendment lawyers in American history. And he has argued. We started together, believe it or not, in 1967. The two of us argued a case in the Supreme Court together on obscenity. We were representing a film called I Am Curious Yellow, which you could probably watch on TV today, G-rated, but it was being banned, and we were together. And we won, we won a lot of First Amendment cases together. But Nat knows what he's talking about. These three presidents didn't know what they were talking about, even though one of them, the professor at Penn, is a First Amendment scholar. At least she has some credibility because she believes in the First Amendment. I don't think President Gay believes in the First Amendment. She thinks the First Amendment is a barrier to woke, progressive, DEI, intersectionality. Remember what they're teaching at Harvard these days. Intersectionality, which means the world is divided into two groups, the oppressed and the oppressors. Israel, white Americans, they're all the oppressors. Black Americans, gays, they're the oppressed. The oppressed can do no wrong. The oppressors can do no right. That's what you're spending $75,000 sending your child to Harvard to learn if they major in political science.
The book is War Against the Jews, fresh off the printing presses. Alan Dershowitz, How to End Hamas Barbarism. When you watch this, and you watch now, the Democrats are attacking Elise Stefanik. Have you seen this? Raskin's attacking her. Says she's not even Jewish. What is she? I go, what the hell? This guy's unbelievable. She didn't set up anybody. All they had to do is answer the damn questions.
Right. Raskin was a former student of mine, a very good student. I actually defended his father when he was indicted back in the day for, I think, violating the draft laws during the Vietnam War. And, Jamie has always been a person of the hard left. He's Jewish, but he calls for a ceasefire, which is unilateral surrender. And Stefanik, who's not Jewish, defends the Jewish people. What else is new?
I think we have a problem with the left in this country, regardless of faith, including Jews. And they don't, in my view, they don't see this as a horrendous event as you and I do. I mean, I think of Kristallnacht. I think of things like that going on, and they're there, cease fires and give this to that. Why are we on two different mindsets here?
It's amazing. People don't know history. I had a cousin who, at 16 years old in the 1940s, was taken and raped by concentration camp guards. Her name was Hannah Dershowitz, a beautiful woman. She was raped, and then she was murdered to cover up the rape, obviously. And that's, of course, what Hamas has done. Raped women, raped hostages, won't release some of the hostages because there would be evidence of rape. And where are the women's groups? Where are the feminist groups? Where is the Me Too movement? What they're basically saying is believe all women, but not Jewish women, not Israeli women. They have to prove it by mathematical evidence, by photographs, by admissions, by eyewitness testimony by dead people. Where are the feminists? Why are they not speaking up? Why are they not criticizing Hamas for using rape? And now Hamas has said it's going to kill the hostages. I haven't heard from the left, the National Lawyers Guild, and others saying, if you kill a single hostage, we're going to abandon you. No, they're going to support them. The world is divided now into the civilized and the uncivilized. And Israel is fighting for civilization, not only for its own survival, but for the survival of the Judeo-Christian tradition and American values and core values of decency. And if Hamas wins, we all lose.
The book is War Against the Jews, Alan Dershowitz. Get it at Amazon.com, any major bookstore. All my platforms will have it. How to End Hamas Barbarism. I got one last question for you.
Sure.
It's amazing to me, Alan Dershowitz, the support from evangelical Christians, other Gentiles in Congress and so forth, the Speaker of the House, for Israel, 100%, no backing off. And then we have people like Bernie Sanders and Raskin and others, and in the media too, quite frankly, who toe the line, the surrender line, the equivocation line. What do you make of that?
Well, because many evangelical Christians have principles. They have beliefs. They know the difference between right and wrong. They are marvelous. I spent a week on a boat with Mike Pompeo and Mike Huckabee, two evangelical Christians, the nicest people you'll ever meet in the world. And then you meet, Jews like Norman Finkelstein and Noam Chomsky will do anything to attack Israel, self-hating Jews. And thank God for evangelical Christians. Thank God for conservatives. Thank God for people of principles. It's just great that in America, most Americans understand principle. And I think most Americans do ask that question in their heart of hearts. What would you want America to do if they were faced with what Israel was faced with? We had a little taste of that on 9/11. And what we wanted, we wanted to destroy ISIS. We wanted to destroy Al-Qaeda, and we did. And nobody should stop Israel from destroying Hamas, because to do so would be hypocritical. Many, many more civilians were killed in Afghanistan and Iraq. Every civilian death is a tragedy, but every civilian death in Gaza is the responsibility of Hamas for using human shields, for putting their fighters. You know what they do? When Israel marks a zone and says, you can go to this zone now, it's safe, Hamas immediately goes to the zone and fires rockets in order to draw Israeli rockets so that they can show CNN, see, Israel says the zone is safe, and now they're firing rockets into it, because Hamas has sent its rocketeers into those zones in order deliberately to draw Israel fire. Why doesn't the media understand that? Why do they just show dead babies without saying who's responsible for the deaths of those babies? If we don't get onto that and destroy this, what Hamas calls the CNN strategy, I call the dead baby strategy: attack Israel and then hide your fighters, know that Israel will kill, and then the world will turn against them. Then it's going to just be again and again and again. It's going to be your shampoo bottle. Wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. That's what Hamas has been doing for 20 years now. If you want to break that cycle, you have to destroy Hamas from top to bottom. Total surrender. Israel is now telling some of the troops for Hamas, some of the terrorists, if you surrender, we won't kill you. And they are surrendering, some of them, but some of them won't surrender. But total surrender, like in Japan and Germany, has to be the goal of Israel and the goal of America. We share a common philosophy, and we should share a common goal in destroying Hamas. Then maybe we can talk about the future of the relationship between Israel and Palestine, not until Hamas is destroyed. There's no discussion until Hamas is over.
Amen. The great book is War Against the Jews, How to End Hamas Barbarism. It is right off the presses. It's up to date. Also provides outstanding context. You can get it Amazon.com, any major bookstore, and of course, we link to Amazon on all my social sites. Alan, appreciate you, buddy. Take care of yourself.
I appreciate you. Thank you. You do a great job for America.
Thank you, man. God bless you.